Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Virgo solar eclipse panel. I am so excited for this. I've been looking forward to this conversation all week. I have two really great astrologers with me today who are familiar faces. First is William Holloway, and also we have Brandon from Bram Astrology back. Guys, welcome.
Hey,
Hey, nice seeing you.
Um, so guys, this eclipse, Brendan, for you, you're Capricorn. So Brendan is a Capricorn rising, and
hmm
William, you're a Taurus rising. So
Mhm.
we both have some Earth energy here, like all Earth rising. Are
Yeah.
we excited for this energy? Are we nervous? Are we all the things?
I'm a mixture of both.
Okay.
For me, I'm a Virgo. So I have a couple planets in Virgo. And it's in my fifth house because Taurus rising. My but my Saturn is at 29 degrees, Virgo.
Oh,
This
wow.
new moon
Well,
is. And having Saturn and Neptune opposing for a while. That I'm used to. But yeah, so it feels all kind of, I don't know.
Well, I
yeah.
want to ask you, William, that's a good place to start. For you, you've lived with this energy then in your Saturn department. So I want to ask you, like, and also you have a lot of Virgo in your chart to begin with. So I'm going to ask you, like, what is that like as a lived experience? What can you pass along to anyone who's watching who's unfamiliar with Virgo energy, especially at that aneretic degree?
Well, I would say my experience my experience has been um, I've noticed when it comes to things like my getting work done or like just like the day-to-day things that require like attention, and having like a routine and I feel like I'm losing the words because it's been happening to me all week, but
Okay.
just like
Creating order in your mundane life.
yeah, like I want to say like I feel like my ADD is extra, like I'm having a harder time like sticking to, like I'll start a task and I feel my discipline feels um hazy. That's what I was trying to say. My discipline feels, like I just keep but it's fine. It's not like, I've been living with it for a minute, but
Distracted, or is it more just burnout?
it's a mixture of both. I mean, I've certainly had like a few moments where in the middle of the day, I'm just like, I'm gonna take a nap. Like I've gotten enough sleep and everything's fine, but I just felt like exhausted. So I think it's just a lot of, stuff like that, which, is not fun, but it passes because I'll say that when Neptune got into Aries a little bit more, or I don't know, when they weren't as close to each other, it was a relief. And so I know that that's coming again soon. So
I feel like when planets are at the energetic degree, particularly like a movement like an eclipse or outer planets, and we have a lot of outer planets which are retrograde right now. So they're having their finale. Uranus, Saturn, they're having a little bit of finale. So when planets are at this degree, they have like a mission, they have something they need to complete. But sometimes that can just be so freaking exhausted because you're at that final stage. Someone was showing Austin Kopic's book yesterday. I think it was Channy shared his book on the deacons, and for the Virgo deacon, it's literally like the coffin. And yeah, like remember? Do you remember? It was like an internet meme 10 years ago, right when we had the last eclipses. What was it, Lil B? Do you guys remember Lil B?
what song did Little B do?
He had
Was
one,
there a song?
but he was like a joke rapper a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But there was a RIP in peace was the meme that I was referencing. That's what I feel like right now. R.I.P. in peace. I always thought that was so yeah, we have planets at the energetic degree. Virgo speaks to, of course, it speaks to our communication, our mind, the words that we're speaking, how we're processing things. It rules our pets, it rules our hands, our health, our lungs, our respiratory stuff is all Mercury area. Another thing I was thinking about too is uh, with we don't really talk a lot about the idea of Mercury kind of ruling the mundane. Like it rules how we're organizing our day. And that's why it rules things like siblings and friends and messages, because it's like how we move through the day. It's like what's local to us. So it's the idea of our processes and who we're processing with in a lot of ways. Virgo is also our work and our health. So it's our physical body. So I think that there is a strong air to this eclipse that is encouraging us to really understand the mind body connection a little bit better and to put in some better processes. And unfortunately, we're going to have to do a little bit of work. I know everyone is exhausted, um, to kind of try to make it so we have things that are a little bit more sustainable. Now, another thing that's sort of happening in terms of our communication and that part of Virgo is, a lot of conversations right now here in America around free speech. And I'm
Yep.
thinking a lot about this, Venus being at 2 degrees of Virgo again. So this is an important element of this chart, but it's in a square to Uranus, which is about to go retrograde. But for now, it's in Gemini and it's trying to start this new seedling moment, this liberation, this freedom conversation in the Gemini section of our chart. So we got a little bit of a challenge here between the mind and the collective mind. And so I see a lot of conversations, probably obviously, about what free speech is. I think another thing, obviously, is like what is obvious, like aside from that, like a lot of conversations, new understandings of what free speech is. Because for some people, it's saying really offensive things about other people because of their skin color or sexuality. They think but that's not free speech, in my humble opinion. Free speech is having an opinion, a political opinion. People are not political.
Right.
So that seems to be one of the conversations of this eclipse. Um, in my private practice, I guess I could say that I'm seeing obviously these things play out because they're cultural events in different ways. We're seeing that again, another aspect to really also consider is this is all kind of building to Saturn and Neptune's conjunction. And if you would like to learn more about that, guys, William and I covered that on his podcast, Orbitals. Go check that out. That's free on Spotify. And another thing is that we'll have another eclipse in February with Venus conjunct the North Node. We have, Pluto and Uranus, which are in conversation for the first time since the 1960s. So those 60s babies are very activated. Then we have early 80s babies that are very activated right now, too, because this eclipse is squaring their Neptune. So some of them might not be seeing very accurately the things that they believe to be true. Some people's ways of perception are actually being challenged right now, whether that is politically, whether that is belief wise. And one cool thing that I have been seeing a lot in my practice is I've been getting a lot of, in particular, 83 and like 89 babies, of course, being activated by Saturn, Neptune, like that were hardcore atheist, and now they want to start a spiritual practice because they're seeing some things that they didn't actually think that they would ever believe. And I've got the interesting role of helping them, guide them towards what that might be for them. So that's been a really cool thing to see, is this consciousness shift. So I wonder, we talk a lot in astrology about consciousness shifts. I think there's going to be several hits over the next couple of years, but I am starting to see it in unexpected places.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. Sorry, let me gather my thoughts. Someone else speak for a second. I have a thought that just started, so let me put it together real quick.
No, yeah, I'm loving a lot of like
Oh,
these.
sorry, continue.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, B. You're good.
I was just gonna say it's right. The pausing and stuff, it was reminding me of that episode of Arrested Development where Michael comes in and he's just like, "Is there a gas leak?"
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
Funny.
That's what the energy feels like, kind of a little bit.
Yeah,
Totally.
and it's something that I find is really unique considering we just have a little bit of the beginning of Uranus being in Gemini. So all of these mercurial conversations in some way, shape, or form are kind of funneling back or being filtered through that Uranus and Gemini experience, which many astrologers and many non-astrologers now know well about the history of Uranus and Gemini relative to the United States' history. And I think that it's really interesting to see how these conversations are being had. And I think to kind of add to what you were saying, be about the free speech and such, I think what's happening when we connect kind of the Uranus and Gemini within that historical context, and then the Mercury ruled eclipse and such, it's a lot about this overwhelm of information and trying to really understand how to digest all of this overwhelm and all of these different sorts of traumatic things, especially as well considering that Uranus and Gemini is also in a trine to Pluto, like a very loose trine to Pluto, which is also a very supportive thing for everyone to evolve very quickly through this confusion, like this confusing kind of rattling of the cage in a sense that it seems as though we're going through. And I think it's just really powerful to see where these eclipses are going. Um, I think it's a really loud one, this one in particular. Um,
Very.
uh, I think it's been quite a large eclipse season. I think it's because a lot of people are now more aware of it. Um, Non-astrologers as well. I think a lot of people are now more paying more attention to that spiritual cycles, and I think that's also because of the North Node being in Pisces and all that support from Jupiter and Cancer, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, there's a lot of different conversations to be had, right? I'm really excited to be talking about all this because there's so many different ways to kind of look at this chart and see what can be coming from this.
Definitely.
Mm.
I want to ask you, Brendan, you are an evolutionary astrologer, so you bring your own flavor to this conversation. Can you talk a little bit about what Mercury or what Virgo, what does this conversation kind of look like from an evolutionary astrology perspective? Like, what are the things that on a collective level, on a psychological level, we're going to be dealing with? And do you have any advice, or do you have like a little routine? Do you have a routine or ritual that you would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the routine, right, that's obviously a big part of this whole Virgo conversation on the South Node, right? I think a lot of us are trying to find some sense of routine and try to go towards that South Node to like be like, okay, if we do this thing enough, then it will be enough for us to then feel safe, feel secure, feel like there's purpose in this, feel like there's something, meaning behind all this. And I think from an evolutionary perspective, it really does speak to that Pluto and Aquarius, right? And kind of the whole Uranus kind of awakening that, where Uranus and Gemini is a lot of these really rapid shifts of perspective that are really allowing us all to funnel into that Pluto and Aquarius, wherever that is at in the chart. I know this is not relative really as much to the conversation relative to how the eclipse is hitting it. But it is something worth noting because, as you kind of mentioned, B, when we start getting eclipses next year, then we're going to have the node really pulling out that evolution, that collective evolution. So it feels as though this eclipse cycle is really kind of like becoming so loud to the point that we are all really understanding our beliefs, our faith, our spiritual practice. Because once we get the eclipses again, right, it's going to be with Jupiter on the south node and then Pluto opposite that, Jupiter-Pluto conversations. So if we look into the far front evolutionarily, it's really a lot of these really deep collective changes. And I think it's all of this intense transformational kind of, stuff. Like I said, it's a lot to digest. And I think evolutionary, Mercury is all about, and you kind of touched on it, like the kind of like day-to-day kind of, movement, but it's also how we understand like our right brain, left brain. And that's kind of what we talk about with the like all of the mutable placements, right? Jupiter, Mercury combinations. And so I think a lot of us are being asked to kind of really balance that out in some way, shape, or form. I mean, this eclipse is technically ruled by a Mercury in Libra, right? Of all things. That's also activating that trine, right? So there's a lot of conversations to be had. I think it's really about how all of us are responding collectively because Pluto Aquarius is such a big part of a lot more than people are are thinking about, especially considering it's really supported in the sky. So I think we
Do you
just,
think lawsuits are going to be a big thing this year?
oh yeah, absolutely. I've already seen it. Yeah,
Mercury and Libra.
yeah, I'm seeing it a lot. I think we're having a lot of lawsuits, specifically around like health related manners as well.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, Luigi's case.
Luigi's case, and then also relative to vaccines, specifically because the vaccine conversation actually happened a lot during, and I don't know if we'll go this far, but during the conversations of the actual Gemini and Sagittarius eclipses that we had back in 2021. So this is kind of bringing up those sorts of same sort of left brain, right brain conversations. So yeah, that's kind of, I don't know. That's just kind of what I have to say. I don't really have, I mean, I can keep talking. I have a lot of Mercury, Jupiter in my chart,
Well,
so I could just keep going, but
I did
it's,
want to touch on something you said about it's interesting because the last time we had eclipses in the signs of Virgo and Pisces was 2016.
Mhm.
And in 2016, in those eclipses, we had Jupiter conjunct the North Node. This is an energy that I know very, very well. Those eclipses were really huge for me. A lot of Jupiterian things came up. Not and like we think of Jupiter always being like this wonderful, abundant planet. And I grew, but it was painful.
Mhm.
It was not the easiest thing. I have a habit in my life of befriending or having very important people. Even my mother. My mother had Jupiter conjunct the North Node and conjunct her moon.
Mhm.
And my friend Melissa, who, of course, my friend that passed away in 2010 during the Jupiter Uranus conjunction, she passed. She had Jupiter in Aries conjunct the moon as well, like my mom.
Mhm.
And in 2016, I was volunteering and I was working with this collective in California, and I got into this very Jupiterian, I'll call it kangaroo court situation where this was a nonprofit music venue that we were volunteering at. It'd been around since the 1980s. And one of the things that really drew me to wanting to, spend my time there was the fact that, there's these rules on the door. And those rules are no misogyny, no violence, no sexism, all of the isms, were on the door. And so it was like a place where you're supposed to be free to be yourself as long as you stay within those guidelines. But once I was in that realm, I started to see it was a structure not unlike every other structure in the United States, where there was a lot of domestic violence happening and a lot of people covering up for it and making excuses for it because there was money to be made. And we ended up 86ing a staff member who was very trigger warning, was, let's say, being very abusive to one of the people who works there. And everyone was willing to like bypass it. And then, neurodivergent me came to the table and I was like, fuck that. Like, no, I'm bringing this to a meeting. Like, we don't need to be honoring this dude. And so we 86'd him. It was hard to do, but we did it. And a week later, they decided to have a man play our venue who murdered his girlfriend. And he went to prison for it. And then he left prison. Like, obviously, he was done. But like, regardless of that, I didn't feel like that was like an appropriate message. But pretty much the entire place that I worked at or was volunteering at, everyone who worked there voted against me. They wanted the murderer to work there or to play there. And it was really heartbreaking for me. And I think it caused me a real, I don't want to say a psychological break, but it was like, well, this part of my life doesn't exist anymore. And so now I have to go create something outside of that to my own values. So that was really me finally seriously pursuing astrology and healing work. And what a wonderful journey it's been, but it was a painful one to get there. And I couldn't help but think, the stories of all the Jupiter North Node people in my life, my mother, Melissa, like they were people who died having just left or tried to leave an abuser. And so it felt like I was working for them in many ways because they're not here. So it was very emotional. And so I've noticed that all of this is to say that Jupiter conjunct the North Node can bring up these very painful issues I've noticed around our ethics when it comes to consequences for doing these types of things. So like there can feel like a little, my point is to say with Jupiter about to conjunct the South Node, I wonder what we're or eventually, right, that's Leo, with the eclipses next year. You mentioned that earlier. I'm just on that. Seems like we have a little bit of a story happening. All of this is to say next year we have one eclipse in February, which has with Venus conjunct the North Node. And then we have Jupiter conjunct the South Node shortly thereafter. It feels like there is these maybe these pivotal moments where women or people who have been disenfranchised are finally speaking and seeking justice or conversations around justice. But that doesn't always mean that we're going to win the fucking lottery. And I just want to say that because a lot of people see, Jupiter stuff and they're like, oh, great. So I think that this is a big theme, especially because we just had a Pisces eclipse, which is ruled by Jupiter, right? So I'm thinking about these things in little pieces. Does that make sense? Did I articulate that in a way that makes sense? I like timelines.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you kind of touched on some really interesting parts relative to the Jupiter North Node eclipse that happened in Virgo. So I actually have my Jupiter in Virgo natally, and so that was my Jupiter return, and that was a very large moment that I'm seeing the repetition of that particular time frame happening as well, and many of my clients that I've brought up just simply about bringing them back to 2016 and seeing how this is such I mean, even in our actual history relative to the actual presidency has another, indication in that same exact, moment. And I think there is always a thread beyond or within astrology. And I find that this eclipse cycle, at least for myself, may be something in which it's like, okay, we have these systems, we have these threads to understand how to go through our day and understand, okay, we have astrology to look back and see all these eclipses that are connected to all these different timelines. And I'm not saying that is invaluable. It's actually extremely valuable. But then the opposite point of that, with it being in Pisces North Node, of almost like, okay, well, when are we too reliant upon like needing to understand something as opposed to having a sense of faith within that and trusting that there is some higher purpose beyond all this chaos that allows us to really lean into that Pisces North Node of this higher power that is a little chaotic, right? But allowing ourselves to trust that in that way. So, and also, of course, the Jupiter return of that particular cycle you're speaking of will happen once again, and that also, with the Jupiter and Virgo, that'll happen in about 2 years, and that will also be shortly when the North Node itself will actually conjunct Pluto almost exactly. So it does kind of speak to this cycle really being something worth watching, but when are we watching it too much as opposed to allowing it to flow through us and live it, right? That's kind of the way that I would really look at that.
Yeah, I'm going to put the chart on the screen in a second, but there's two things that you said that I really want to touch on. I think having faith is a really important thing. And like not losing sight of that. And one thing I talk about a lot, especially lately, and I think that this is so important, especially with like a Mercury eclipse, is finding that sort of everyday magic. And I saw a thing today where this woman was like, I was trying to make my life more whimsical. So she puts on a crown when she's cleaning the house. And it reminds her that when she was young, when she was a little girl, she used to pretend clean and it was a fun thing and it was play. So finding ways to get through some of the more mundane tasks or, the everyday BS, I think, and trying to make it a little bit more whimsical. I was talking with Tess, who is City Wit or City X Witch on Instagram. She's really great. Guys, go follow her. She's a tarot reader. And she was like, and yeah, that's exactly why I chose the name City Witch, which is because, you know, I wanted to find like magic in taking the train every day and doing these like little, you know, anyway. So I think that that's one way to really kind of live the eclipse, is to find little magical ways to make this a little easier. I was just trying to clean my fridge, deep clean my fridge, and I had no energy to do it. And I was like, I'm gonna put on some Degrassi. I'm going to, I need to drink water, and I can't drink water. Like I just couldn't do it. Like, and I need to. It's an eclipse week, by the way, guys, hydrate. And so I did little shots of water while I was watching Degrassi every time they said a boop.
That's great.
Yeah, but so like find ways to add whimsy if you're having trouble doing the things, as I call it. Now, the other thing that I think is also important with this is tough conversations might need to be had as well. It is a Virgo eclipse. So we might need to confront some like family stuff, some interpersonal stuff that maybe has gone unsaid for a little bit. But I actually think that this is with, you know, Mercury in Libra being kind of here too. I mean, this is a good time to have conversations that might otherwise be, you know, getting a negative reaction. We might actually see some compromise, like, which gives me a little bit of hope. I'm gonna put the chart on this, but I also wanted to read the Sabian symbol. Did
Oh
I
yeah,
get that?
I did. I looked at it.
Let's see, where is our scene? Let's see.
Yeah, I saw a headline just like an hour ago that Trump said he's threatening to revoke broadcast licenses of networks over negative coverage. So this feels like this is definitely like part of it, right? Like this is definitely part of, you know, I think our era of Saturn Neptune, as we've seen in other, you know, throughout history of Saturn Neptune. But I feel like this is like the speech part of it, right? Like our words, like I don't know.
Well, and that's also where you see Mercury, you know, trining the Uranus Pluto at the same time and kind of inciting that 1776 sort of Pluto Aquarius
Yeah.
and Uranus return, and also Uranus return loose, you know, of Donald Trump as well, also speaks to that. So I think that's a really important point to bring up. Yeah.
And being opposite Neptune, just like a Neptune alone makes me think of like Virgo being drunk with power, but also being drunk at the same time. So there's like no reason behind like all of these decisions. It's just like, you know,
It's just it's all a disturbance, and in many ways it's a distraction.
yeah.
And the real thing comes with the lunar eclipse in Pisces we just had, which is like the fucking Epstein files. Just fucking release them. Like that is that eclipse was literally on his Venus Mars. And this conversation isn't going away because in the next few eclipses we have 16 degrees of Pisces repeatedly being hit in different planets. Mercury the next eclipse. So it's not going away, guys. It's not going away. So yeah, looking at this chart, did anybody else have any thoughts that they wanted to add?
Well, I don't know, William, if you have anything you want to add.
Sorry, the big ice cube in my mouth. Well, just, you know, and we already kind of touched on this, but just, you know, all like every major outer planet, all the other planets are getting pinged, you know, so.
Well, Mars is going to hit the Pluto for everyone who was born like 83.
Yep.
82-ish, right? So that's like, that feels very big.
Yep, and it's Mars right before it goes into a sign it rules, in its domicile. So it's going to be a lot more activated. It's also that Mars is immediately going to hit Pluto as a square as well. And last time we saw that Mars Pluto activation was actually when we had Luigi Mangione, as well as Tesla things down in I forgot where that was exactly, but the Tesla things around New Year's. So it does feel
December 9th. It was December 9th.
it feels like a brighter part, not brighter part, but part of another closing cycle of Mars being, how we go after our goals and how we assert and create change, and then that Pluto hit of the rebellion. So it feels like there is something within that Mars Pluto that does bring up a bigger cycle that we will also see when we have Mars Pluto conjunct, which I don't think will happen until probably like February, March, I believe, which would line up with the second version of this eclipse in 6 months. But we'll see that kind of also come up here.
If you have people in your life who were born about 1964 to about 1967, they're going to be very lit up too, because Chiron, the North Node, is going to be going over Chiron for them. But also they're going to be very hit by Uranus and Pluto as well. So it feels very much like a generational story kind of getting broken down too. We might see some, obviously we're already seeing this. We're seeing, a lot of separation in families, a lot of arguments within families over ideology and everything that's happening right now. It feels very Civil War-esque. And, as they say, brothers torn apart or whatever we read in history class. But
also, sorry, not to interrupt,
yeah,
but
please
something
interrupt.
on a more mundane level of that age group, wouldn't that age group might be getting ready to retire?
Yeah. And I think many of them are having to take care of elderly parents that
Mm.
were kind of their Chiron moons, right? Like, this is a whole generation having to take care of fucking boomers, right? Like, and the Gen Xers haven't quite healed themselves, but a lot of them think that they have. So they're having to go back to being like these very, like, Pisces sacrificial themes, right? Like, it feels very intense.
Yeah.
I want to briefly read the Sabian symbol, if that's okay with everyone, and then just kind of get some thoughts on that. So, the Sabian symbol is having an urgent task to complete. A man doesn't look to any distractions. This made me laugh, William. That made me think of what you were saying.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
symbol This
I
symbol
know.
implies the need for single mindedness in application. Distractions can lead one astray and waste valuable time, with the end result of not completing what one sets out to do. Indeed, you can find yourself not even starting what you need to be starting. Although, with this symbol around, you can be the type of person who won't let anything get in the way of completing your objectives. The trick is not to get lost in the details. That's hard for Virgo. Keeping
Mm.
a list of goals can help focus on what needs to be done. Great advice. Pushing through the work, avoiding temptations, regardless of what's going on around you, will bring the rewards of completion. Stay true to yourself and on the path. One pointed application, the need for focus, seeing to the finish, maintaining direction, doing what needs to be done, housework. Oh my goodness, my refrigerator will thank me. Attention to outside influences, the slightest excuses, avoidance, rigidity of thought, missed creative opportunities, indulgences, workaholics, and addictions.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty on point. We were just talking about me cleaning, getting the sudden urge to finally clean my kitchen, but I had no energy. I had to really push through, guys.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, when you were talking about cleaning earlier, and how like someone was making it like whimsical, I have to do that too, but I'm always just reminding myself that cleaning is magic, like you're transforming the space, you're changing the energy. And so that helps me get into it. Like I have to, I'm like, oh, then it's kind of cool.
Like a little floor wash.
Hmm.
I love one of the greatest things, guys, and it's so simple. Just like putting a little Florida water on that Swiffer, it just makes everything smell good and more magical.
And I really like, and I'm sure William, you can kind of speak to this with how much Virgo you have as well. I think there's something to be said on like the magic of routine and the balancing act of of being in the flow of something, and there's something about this eclipse cycle that kind of asks us to balance that out and know when, we can't meditate so much that we can get our dishes done. We can't just like go into the ether and then just get everything finished. But then also we can't like just get so caught up in the monotony that we lose our connection to divinity. But then I think there's that nice middle ground that you've probably experienced with how much Virgo you do have, where there's a sense of flow and kind of connection to divinity in that like day-to-day moments, right? That's kind of something I think
Totally.
an interesting thing to like pick your brain about,
Yeah, and I think that also that speaks to just the Virgo Pisces axis anyway, like if you want to think of like opposites or like the commonalities of whatever axis you're looking at, like maybe we need to find balance. So what's the balance, I think, between Virgo and Pisces is that space between spiritual health and either physical or mental health, so kind of the same, really the same thing, I think, but that but they're the same, you kind of realize that. I think there is something spiritual about cleanliness.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. That's very Virgo.
It's very energetically pure too. Like when you're in a very pure space, like that's actually very clean. It feels energetically very clean as well. It has that kind of Piscean translation as well.
Yeah, it's like a ace card in a tarot deck or something, like the beginning of a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
Did we pull an oracle card for the collective, guys?
No, but we should.
I have some decks. I can grab them. If anybody, I encourage you guys, if you want to grab a deck, by all means. Brendan, it sounds like you're tight where you are, so I want to ask you a question while I go grab my deck really quick. So what do you find to be the best way when you're exhausted, when you're burnt out? You're a projector, so you don't have access to a lot of energy. Your energy is scarce. So how do you really get through when your energy is scarce? Like, are there hacks? Like for me, something that helps is body doubling. A body doubling, if anybody doesn't know what that means,
Yeah, what's up?
this term that we use a lot with autism or ADHD, when people are low spoons, low energy, it's helpful to have a phone conversation or bring a friend in so that you can kind of get their energy a little bit while you're doing something. And it's so helpful. And I think that a lot of spoonies, we really just need that to get the laundry done, to get the dishes clean, call your bestie and be like, yo, just tell me a story. Tell me the most ridiculous story that happened to you this month. Like something small like that can be very helpful. But do you have something like that you do?
Yeah, actually, pretty much what you said. Body doubling is a part of it. I think for me, my routine is something that when I'm overwhelmed, I just kind of just chill out. I just relax and because my energy is something that is so finite. It's not something that is just, I'm not a generator. I'm not a manifester. I don't have that same thing. I'm kind of like a talking head. So somatic work is definitely something that really does help me as well. Like kind of ground into my body. I found that to be a lot more beneficial as of lately, for me, just to kind of pull myself out of this mental kind of space, and pull it into my sacral and kind of have those moments of just connection to my body. That is a good routine to have. Like spiritual hygiene, I think is one of the most important things in anyone's life, but I think it's very important right now to recognize that for everybody. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I pulled from, okay, we have two decks that I really wanted to work with today. I have Wild Wan Yin. So Wan Yin is the Buddhist goddess of compassion. Love this deck. If you've worked with me in the past, you're familiar with this deck. I love it. It survived a fire. Okay, so let us pull a card. And I'm going to tap into your projector spirit for a minute. I'm going to shuffle a few plus.
Sure, go ahead.
So let me know when you feel like the right message is coming in. All right, I'm calling upon our guides. Please give the collective a spirit message we all need to hear with this eclipse.
Now, yes.
This one?
Yeah, that one. Sure.
Okay.
I'm not a reflector, so it's very different, but yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. You just felt a little magical.
Thanks. Everyone's magical. We're all magical.
Daughter of the Red Tent.
What was it?
It's called Daughters of the Red Tent.
Hmm.
Opening up to new life takes courage. You have to be willing to enter into unknown territory, and sometimes you may feel insecure as you find your way. To live a new life means leaving behind the life that you have known. You may feel inspired, but also challenged. Whether you are loving the transition or struggling to get through it, know that you are held in protection of the Daughters of the Red Tent. This is a time where you may need to shield yourself from prying eyes or opinions of the world, just until you feel strong enough to stand in your own truth in this new phase and not find that the doubts or the fears of others will cause you to doubt yourself. Just as birth cannot happen in the full light of day, it needs the nurturing of darkness, of seeds in the soil or babies in the womb. So does your emergence out of transformation need its own covering, i.e., its own red tent. Here it can be held until the time is right to emerge, ready for you to hold your own in the world on a stable, secure inner foundation. You can choose to shield yourself by loving yourself and emerging yourself in self-love and all the uncertainty and confusion that may come along with it in your transformational process with patience and curiosity, respect, and compassion. You do not need to judge yourself or the process in any way. Do not allow others to judge you either. The only way through such a process is to have unconditional trust. So take your time in solitude as it needs to be and call on nurturing rituals to help you through the process. You can choose to care for yourself the best way that you can while you learn to trust yourself and grow into this new life. Patience and working on yourself will bring success. Trust in the divine timing of how things are unfolding in your life. There will be a surprising return of life, something springing back into life, or something lost will be found in a better way than before. The red tent is a wise, sacred space. It allows for restoration and healing that is so powerful, but it happens naturally from within. Surround yourself with people and places that feel nurturing and protective of you and with your best interests at heart. I love this because another thing I've been thinking a lot about lately is monitoring spirits and how they just suck all the energy out of you. And so if you're feeling fucking drained, it could be monitoring spirits. Monitoring spirits, for people who don't know, are, like the people that are constantly looking at your Instagram stories, but they're not
Mm.
liking your shit, or the people who always have criticism or feedback or want to be, annoying in the comment sections. They're just energy vampires.
Hmm.
But they're more than energy vampires because they pretend that they are your friend or your supporter, but they're not. They're secretly kind of being haters. But they want to know what you're doing. They want to know what you're doing. Do you guys have monitoring spirits, or have you dealt with monitoring spirits?
In the past, but I haven't had anything like that recently. But yeah, I know what that's like for sure.
Sometimes you're just getting energy sucked out of you by other people, just completely unaware of it.
Hmm.
I'm
Well,
gonna,
they're miserable usually, and so they're just projecting, you know?
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna pull a affirmation card. William, this time around, do you want to pick it?
Hmm. Sure. Okay.
Top or bottom?
Bottom.
Taking control. I cannot control how people treat me, I cannot control how people interact with me or communicate with me. I can only control my own actions and responses. I will not be affected by how others view me. Oh, this seems to be kind of a repeating message. Instead, I will embrace my own self love and my self assurance for guidance. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if this is because this is a repeating theme. I wonder if this is maybe a theme here where people are maybe caught up in the perceptions of other people or the criticisms of other people. And I feel like with Venus in a square to Uranus, this is a wonderful opportunity to break free from what other people think and say.
Yes,
This is something
absolutely.
I'm thinking about a lot lately.
Yeah, this is a very, it's important to be able to like not let the criticism of others take you down and make you more critical of yourself. You know, I feel like that's such a Virgo and like struggle, you know, especially with Venus and Virgo. You know, I think there's
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Venus and Virgo like loves by, it's the well actually of
Yeah, starts with a critique before a compliment, right?
yeah, I dated a Venus in Virgo for many years, and what was the catchphrase? I'm doing this for your own good.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm wondering too if there might be a little bit of a, the next eclipse has a Venus in Pisces. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of story happening for our Venus and Virgo people and our Venus and Pisces people.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us in the comments down below if something is happening for you guys where you're breaking free of some restriction. And I wonder if with the next eclipse, that's like owning your own self-worth, your own value, the things of Venus with Venus conjunct the North Node.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I want to say one last thing, a little bit about that eclipse, even though we're going to come back and we're going to do a whole panel on that. But just thinking of these eclipses as like transition pieces because they're happening this winter. One piece of advice that I have is if you're feeling a little bit more insular this winter, when the winter starts to unfold, and we're kind of coming out of our womb, maybe that'll be like March or so, like right after the eclipse in February, maybe even in February around Valentine's Day. Do yourself a favor and please plan a trip to your local museum, your art museum. Go see films, go listen to new music. If you haven't listened to new music, if you're someone like me, this is advice to myself. If you're someone like me who often listens to the same 5 songs from 1987, stop doing that shit because this is a year with Venus conjunct the North Node. This is a year for really, really amazing art. What is it like? Yoko Ono has Venus conjunct the North Node, and she has an Aquarius, obviously. But I mean, this is a time for like true artistry,
Mm-hmm.
especially having to do with themes of peace. I would say too, like that. I mean, this is a time where peace activists. I keep an eye on, like, especially if they're like related to art in some way. I mean, if obviously Yoko Ono, we might see like a modern day kind of version of that.
Mhm.
I'm just loving, and also I'm just loving Cardi B right now and that new
Oh, yeah.
song. That is really wonderful. So like I kind of have my eye on Cardi B a little bit and like the art that she might be putting out this year. Like I think it's going to be a really wonderful time. So go to the museum in your town. Go support that stuff. Like go to a punk show in someone's basement if you haven't gone to one of them in 10 years. Like go see local music. Go see local art. Really, really, really do that. And if you have put away your paintbrush or haven't made a sculpture or something in a really long time, this is a wonderful time to, and even if you say I don't have artistic talent, there are these like cute notebooks now you can get where it teaches you to watercolor and it teaches you like color theory and stuff like this. And I've seen people who've like never had a paintbrush in their hand ever before, and they're like making these masterpieces now that they know how to do it. Utilize technology, utilize, independent art, like learn to make something, be open to working with the muses, be inspired, because I do think there could be a portal opening at the end of this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Does anybody else have any final thoughts on the eclipse?
Hmm.
Did you want to put the chart back on the screen?
Yes, let's put the chart back on the screen, guys.
Yeah, I guess my one little thing I'll say, it's kind of just a different version of things that have already been said, but it just made me think of this visual. And anytime you can have a visual to represent something is always helpful. But this Virgos in general remind me of this, but this particular eclipse, at the energetic degree makes me think of, like, those Disney cartoons of, like, when it's like chipmunks and they are preparing for winter and they're like singing a song and they're gathering all their like nuts and stuff and they're all prepared for winter. I feel like this is like um about preparing for winter because winter is coming, right? So it's like getting
Winter is coming, you say. Very
Yeah.
Thrones.
I like that visual. That's nice. It's very this eclipse opposite Neptune. Like kind of moment,
Yeah.
It's very, yeah.
Well, like the sky is black, but these chipmunks are cartoons and they're just singing their song, they just know what they have to do, so they're like not sweating it. They're not paying attention
Yeah.
because they're gonna be inside their little tree home when it
Yeah.
starts raining or snowing.
It's kind of like having that
I
design.
did,
Oh, go ahead, B.
I did want to say something, and this actually goes back to a conversation William and I had a few weeks ago, where we were talking about how people often will come to you, especially like with I did this rant last week. Let's do it again. Um, TikTok astrologers, and Brendan is a TikTok astrologer, but he is a great one that does not fearmonger. So go follow him instead. But there's a lot of TikTok astrologers that will see like a Mercury retrograde or an eclipse, and they will try to scare you because they want you to
Yeah.
buy a reading. And here's the thing, if you don't already have something going on, it's unlikely that like something completely out of left field is going to happen.
Right.
I think a lot of times we can foresee or we can sense things. Sometimes we don't. There is always the opportunity for like, mystery and unexpected things to happen, especially when Uranus isn't at play. But
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, one thing William and I were talking about that is kind of funny is sometimes he'll pull cards and it'll literally be the TV show that he's watching that day. And I had
Yeah.
a conversation with him about this because I noticed that about the astrology. Like when
Mhm.
I had the Libra eclipses, I was just binging Law and Order SVU. Like right now,
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
grassy.
well, it's like, think about, like, everyone has that one relative that like doesn't do anything and just never goes anywhere until like well, like we all have moments too where it's like it's not productive, like, or we're just like in all weekend watching TV. The astrology, you're gonna see it still. There's gonna be themes, like it just,
Yeah.
if you just see it out your window or if it's like
Yeah.
in the news or the TV show you're watching. I mean, yeah, it's always happening.
Okay, so that brings me to my final question for you guys. With that being said, with things sometimes just being the show you're watching, the album you're listening to, what you listening to? What would you recommend for this eclipse cycle? Because I have a few recommendations, but I want you guys to start if you have them. Like, what are you listening to right now? What are you binging right now? What are you excited to start rewatching?
Hmm.
What do you, or what or an even better question, I'll leave this a very open-ended. What television series feels very much these aspect patterns, or like an album, or
Mhm.
I don't know, a piece of art? I mean, we had the squirrel reference, but something people can binge.
Hmm. I have one that actually has been coming up specifically for me as this eclipse is in my third house, which has a lot to do, not this eclipse specifically, but what's the Pisces North Node in my third house is a lot about the media that I watch. And I find that there might be some thread that people might relate to relative to this. And essentially, there's kind of a thread in modern media of a lot of different shows. The Magicians is one of them. It's one of my favorite shows. The Magicians, The Flash, in
Can
particular.
you talk about them? I'm familiar with them, so maybe somebody here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah. So The Magicians and The Flash are both really great shows. The Flash is based off, it's on the CW, and it's based off of you know, uh The Flash, like that superhero. And then The Magicians is more of like millennial core, kind of like dark academia, like we were speaking about earlier. And the main premise of them, and it came up to me, like I said, weirdly enough, during the new moon in Pisces, all the way back in March, right? And there's this common thread between both of those shows in particular, without going too deep into like spoiling it, because there's a lot of seasons of both of those shows, more for The Flash than The Magicians. But the thread that's kind of constant between all of them is the media that I really enjoy watching, is that there's this premise of the characters in the show kind of in some way playing God, right? And pushing past those boundaries, very nodal, very North Node in Pisces, like pushing past that boundary of that kind of veil. And kind
Even with the Flash, that's like being of service to the world when you're a super, right?
It is. And they're trying to be of service, right? They're trying to utilize magic or whatever powers they might have to supersede the natural laws of the universe, right? It's very like a Virgo Pisces kind of moment. And I think there's a lot to be said on that media and the way in which, if you watch those shows, you know that a lot of those shows and episodes and things all kind of just become this cyclical thing where they're always trying to chase the next the next hole in the sinking boat, or the next issue that they like, oh, I broke this rule and I did this thing wrong, right? Because we were trying to play God or whatever. And then it becomes something that they don't have to keep working harder at on the Virgo side in this example, being more of service to try and figure it out more, when they could just trust the process or just not push past those boundaries. Like they did in the first place to cause the issue, right? So it's very much that kind of thread that I find, at least for me, is something that I found a lot of that media as myself, as someone who has Pisces in the third, and this nodal axis has really brought up that specific theme for me in media, and it's really about knowing when you're pushing too much on either limit of that. When you're like denying your own divinity, and when you are also denying your own humanity, right? Kind of like when you're going too far on either end, I think is really that conversation.
That's very interesting. I was just thinking about how this is happening on Liam Gallagher's Mercury. It's this eclipse, and that's an archetype for sure. He's very god. He calls himself godlike.
Mm-hmm.
And tries to push beyond the boundaries of humanhood.
Mm-hmm.
And that also very famous for being a brother, which is another Mercury thing, right? Like very famous for the way he speaks in a very unconventional way, which is the Uranus of this eclipse perhaps. And they're about to put out their first new record in 16 years, Oasis, and they've been doing all these tours, and I think it's quite wonderful. Like it kind of mirrors the Beatles in the 60s when they were doing all of their stadium tours.
Mm-hmm.
Their Beatles were very famous for doing these stadium tours, but you couldn't even hear the Beatles because women were screaming so loudly. But yeah, and of course Oasis wants to be the Beatles. They're like basically Beatles worship. And so they're playing all these stadium tours. And I think it's really beautiful because, it's quite literally people coming together from all different backgrounds, but more importantly, they're known as a working class band. They speak to the everyman, and a lot of their songs. I was just talking about this with a friend who got to go see them. One of the things I really appreciate, he has Mercury right on his midheaven at 29 degrees of Virgo. His songs are very much like they're not about the past, even though they reference the past in some ways, like sonically or like Beatles worship. But if you actually listen to the lyrics of most Oasis songs, they're about being in the present moment. It's about, being a rock star regardless of how much money is in your pocket and how much anyone cares. It's about living your life with a certain level of super confidence, and whatever happens when we go out tonight, we're going to be rock stars and we're going to make the most of it. And I feel like that's the other side of Virgo that doesn't get a lot of credibility that happens when you get these later degrees, is where the need to shine, the need to like make things fun. Like Virgos often get written about as these like very critical, like,
Mm-hmm.
nerdy, but like also there's a lot of Leos that are just very egoic, very good at what they do. They have a very strong point of view. They want to be heard. They want to shine. You have to remember that, like, I mean, I could name on my hand like 10 different Virgos that just have these very big personality. Like Dolores O'Riordan from the Cranberries. I was just listening to the Cranberries again, a late degree Virgo, I'm pretty sure. She is somebody who is very brave, who spoke up about things that other people were not going to sing about, child abuse, things that happen, like the Irish culture and the wars that affected generations of people. Like she wrote that song Salvation about heroin not being cool, like when at the height of heroin chic. Like it wasn't always the coolest thing to say, but she said it. And I think that that's the beautiful energy of Virgo. It can be the person in the room that confidently says what they needs to say. And I think at the 29th degree, there's some words that maybe need to be said. So if you're needing to invoke an archetype of confidence and bravery in your words, go to Liam Gallagher. He has this energy. He wears this energy well.
Mm-hmm.
Or Dolores, if you're partial to the Cranberries.
Yeah.
William, there's something you've been watching or binging that you've been enjoying, or that speaks
That
eclipses?
speaks to this moment. Nothing that I've been trying to rack my brain, nothing that really speaks to this moment, but I'll say that kind of speaks to a future moment is that um m- me and B are going to be doing an episode on my podcast
Oh,
about the astrology of the television show 6 Feet Under back in
Ooh.
the early 2000s. And so that's going to be closer to Halloween, which is appropriate.
yeah.
And I'm feeling like it's not, there's a lot of things that make sense, right? Like, so Mercury, siblings, that's a big part of it. There's
Mm-hmm.
something about the service so that everyone feels so like well, there's a lot of that sacrifice, right?
Yeah. The character of Ruth, I think, is such an interesting character study too, because she's like very much this like selfless figure, like this very Virgo kind of figure. And throughout the show, she sort of learns how to have boundaries with her children and how to talk
Mhm.
about, like, and it's very shocking to watch that progression as well. Whereas
Yeah,
pretty sure her daughter, she's a
Claire.
Pisces
Oh
energy.
yeah.
Well, and with the foot, Pisces energy.
Oh, the foot. Oh my God, yeah, you're right. And also like the show would have these like fantasy elements where it's like whether they're dreaming or they're like dead, it's like the dead father would be speaking to them and that would be like a I don't know, it's like a theater, right? Like showing you their like inner monologue by them talking to these ghosts or whatever. So this fantasy element. So maybe it's a stretch to say that it fits into this,
Well, I think that's such
but
a thing. Sibling shows can be very good to rewatch.
Mhm.
Just really, like, this is embarrassing, but I was thinking about rewatching One Tree Hill, which is a sibling show, and it's a
Oh,
school show. I was thinking I've been watching. For me, it's been Degrassi, but I might shift into another school. I like school show, like teen. I'm kind of a loser, and I love teen dramas, guys.
that's okay.
But I was like thinking about you were like watching that, or like the OC or something. And again, a show about friends that are kind of like brothers, and also a
Hmm.
very wordy show. Also, we just had at the Emmys, we just had the Gilmore Girl reunion, and I'm like, that's a very Virgo, like big giant wordy scripts, 80-page scripts per episode.
That's
That could be a
true.
good one.
The dialogue.
It
Yeah,
is
that's a good one.
fall. Go watch the Gilmore Girls,
Yeah,
guys.
go watch that's a perfect one. Watch that.
Yeah. Is there like another show, like a good, like, I guess Gilmore Girls is kind of like the quintessential fall show, but is there like another version of that?
Felicity? I don't know.
That's a school show. That's a school show. I was thinking more like a something that people go to in the fall that like makes them feel, I don't know, warm inside or something, like I don't know. Like some people have those shows where it's like it's fall again. I'm gonna watch this show.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it was the Gilmore Girls, but I can't really enjoy that much anymore because it reminds me a little too much of my own family, guys.
Fair.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here with me
Yeah.
tonight. Do we have any final words of advice or encouragement? Did anyone huff
Just,
before this?
huh? What were we gonna say?
I made a joke. I said, did everyone huff gas before this?
No, I was just gonna say, take a big deep breath. It's all gonna be okay. Just breathe.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good piece of advice. Breathe. 4-7-8 breath.
Because Virgos get, anxiety very easily, and a lot of it is because they're not paying attention to their breath, Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's because they won't shut up and they're just like trying to fill the space,
Mm-hmm.
or they're just, just breathe, listen, listen more, talk less, breathe.
I like that. Go in your little cocoon, but get shit done in your cocoon. That's my piece of advice. If you can cocoon for the next few months and get your shit done, I think it's going to be a baller ass summer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is my.
Especially considering Mars goes into Scorpio the day after.
That's going to be interesting. Guys, with that, I say release the Epstein files, free Palestine, and fuck Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Love you guys. Thank you so much
Love
for
you too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And guys, we'll be back soon with a new episode. And yeah, we have some really exciting things to look forward to. I'm going to start announcing my winter curriculum. We have some really cool classes coming from Saturn season astrology and a few others we're going to announce soon. Of course, William and Brendan will be back next year, and I'm looking forward to that too. So everyone have a really good eclipse season. Let me know in the comments how you're doing, how you're holding up. And please go follow William and Brandon. Brandon is at Bram Astrology. As always, I will put that in the info below. And William, you're at William.Holloway.
Or, well, my Instagram is william.stanley.holloway, but you can also just go to my website, William Holloway Astrology.
Amazing. I'll put all those links down below. Everyone take care. Bye-bye.